in delivering that one. It's I guess a conundrum, but we've hit a hard spot. We've hit a hard spot this week, and family members that we love and we've lost, and we just need to remember their families, as Steve said, and keep praying for them during this difficult time. As I said yesterday in Perlene's, your parents are never too old for it to devastate you when they die. They're always your, in Southern speak, they're always your mom and your daddy, and you miss them terribly. This morning we're going to talk about a culture of service and the fact that we as Christians need to develop this culture of wanting to serve one another. I mean, leadership books stress it. I'm going to take you back in history. There might be a few here that remember when this happened, but anyway, the Roman Senate, see, did you get that? Okay. The Roman Senate gave Octavian the exact same powers that they had given Julius Caesar, and then they murdered him for his use of those powers. What was the difference? Well, the difference was Julius Caesar commanded respect, commanded that you follow him. Octavian built a command based on being good and serving others and caring for others. Now, it does turn out historically that he was faking it, and he wasn't much better when the time came. But he was trying to gain support, and what you saw happen was the same rules that they hated under a commanding leader, they loved under a serving leader. And so service to one another, while should not be used to elevate yourself, it should be used because you understand that you cannot lead until you know how to serve. So let's start with the scripture reading, hear the words of Jesus, and then we'll move further into our lesson.
Okay, the reading is from Mark 10, verses 35 to 45. Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him. Teacher, they said, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. What do you want me to do for you? He asked. They replied, let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory. You don't know what you are asking, Jesus said. Can you drink the cup I drank, or be baptized with the baptism I was baptized with? We can, they answered. Jesus said to them, you will drink the cup that I drink, and be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with, but to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those to whom they have been prepared. When the 10 heard about this, they became indignant with James and John. Jesus called them together and said, you know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave to all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many.
Thank you. Selfishness dominates our society, and Mom and I were talking kind of along this line last week, and she gave me a little analogy. Watch this. No, it's not a Food Network show. Once you break an egg, you can't put it back. If anyone would like to try and then bring me the results, I'd be glad for you to. We are so quick in this world to think that everyone deserves my opinion. And unfortunately, oftentimes, our opinions can be hurtful, especially when we think our opinion is that important. So we need to watch out. We need to watch out and see that it is not about the great I. It's about the great I am. James and John, we've talked about this verse many times, But in the very beginning, they show their ignorance when they say, will you do whatever we say without asking what it is we want you to do before you say you'll do it? Well, what would your answer be? No. You know, they were only interested in themselves. And so selfishness it dominates our society. It's everywhere we look. And inevitably, selfishness will leave you feeling friendless and alone. If you're trying to use your money to earn friends, well, we saw that from the son who asked for his inheritance, right? And once he spent it, where were his friends? They were gone. We will see that in our lives when you feel like in a conversation of people, you need to dominate that conversation to prove how knowledgeable you are or how impressive you are. Inevitably, people don't want to talk to you. And eventually, they pull away more and more and more because it's just not fun to talk. In the workplace, if you are the one that are always trying to show others up so that you can be pushed up the ladder, nobody wants to follow you for the way that you got there. So what can we do to change this culture of selfishness? Well, first, we need to be a people that love to learn. Now, throughout this leadership series, you will know that some of the same verses pop up time and time again. That's because Jesus used the same lessons to teach the same thoughts. Love of God is always going to be followed by love of your neighbor. You cannot be a child of God and not love your neighbor. You cannot be a lover of God and be racist. They don't go together. They just don't fit in the same sentence. You cannot be a police officer who loves God and be mean to your constituent out there. You cannot be. I just got out of airplanes this last week, 4 or 5 flights in about 4 days. You cannot be a good fellow traveler and demand your way on everything and be rude to everyone around you. Yeah, I got one of those flights where a guy got mad and ran through the whole airport threatening to shoot everybody and cursing at the top of his lungs because his flight got overbooked and he was on standby. You cannot be a good co-citizen and think you deserve more, that you're better than the others. So here, and he said to them, love your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, or I think in this part it means your inner strength, and all of your mind or your thoughts. This is the great and the foremost commands. And then there's the second one. It's just like it, he says. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you will treat your neighbors as you want to be treated, if you will treat other people on the road as you want to be treated, if you will treat people in the stores. I love the fact that stores like Walmart will hire the handicapped. I love that. I think it is very appropriate. I hate the way people treat them sometimes. They are not less than anyone else. And so, treat people as you want to be treated. And then, on this hangs every law and every prophecy. That's interesting. So, love your neighbor. Love also says everyone has value. Does anybody else notice that we're in a world divided right now? We are divided politically. We are divided socioeconomically. We are divided racially. We are divided. And that's not what we want. If I'm a conservative, which I am, I need to love a person that is the polar opposite of me. Why? They're a child of God. If I'm a Christian, I value the atheist because he could be a child of God. If I'm a leader, I value those under me as my followers because they deserve a leader that cares. Value everyone. had a discussion just this last week, and we were talking about people that kind of don't understand the war experiences of others. And I said, well, you know, one of my great haunts, I guess, in my life, one of the great pains I have in my life and concerns is how many units, because my job was on a small team, was to choose the units that would be deployed to Afghanistan. And I took every death personally, and I still take them personally, because you wonder, could I have chosen better? And I would do my best to pick the very best equipped, doesn't matter. I valued those who were under my leadership as if it were my own life that was being put on the line. And also love, in this value, we remember the scripture that greater love has no man than that a person will lay down his life for his friends. The fullest extent of love is self-sacrifice. And I don't want to tell you too much of what I have planned for next Saturday to say, but I will say this. At one point, Jerry Harbach saw that they were not going to keep their position. They were being overrun by approximately 2,000 Chinese. And they were on there and they were fighting with knives each other. And he says they're getting past us. They're overrunning us. Jerry called down, I don't know whether it was air power or called down mortar fire on top of his own position, because he thought it was more important that they stop that charge to protect the men behind them and those men on top of the hill lose their lives than it was to try and protect themselves so that a few of them could get off the mountain. Isn't that amazing? Greater love has no man than to give up his life. And I feel that way about every veteran among us and around the world. Whether they lived or died, they were willing to give up their life for their fellow man. Every police officer on duty knows he could have to give up his life for his fellow man. Every fireman knows at some point he will be called upon to run into a burning building at peril of his own life for his fellow man. And those are all people that deserve to be respected for that. So don't just say it. Don't just feel it. Do it. This is one of those things that I tell you sometimes, you cannot turn around ignorance of the Bible in one day. You can't leave here and say, wow, Jeff encouraged me that now I know the Bible. No, got to study that one. But you can walk out of here with a changed attitude on how you treat others, how you live, how you respond to others. So do it. Talked a little bit about 2 weeks ago about confidence versus arrogance. Arrogance is destructive to good leadership. The puffed up leader is living in illusion on what he thinks he can do, and an illusion on how he thinks others can see him. Do you remember Herod? This is one of the, I guess if it's one of the gory, but it's one of the funny stories about how God sees arrogant leadership. But in Acts chapter 12, on the appointed day after putting on his royal apparel, Herod took his seat on the rostrum. Now, why does the Holy Spirit tell us about him putting on his royal apparel? It's his attitude in preparing to go meet the people. So anyway, he begins delivering an address to them, but the people repeatedly shouted out, "Oh, this is the voice of a God. This is not a man." And immediately, an angel of the Lord struck him. Why? Not because the crowd said it, because he believed it. He accepted it. So immediately an angel of the Lord struck him because he did not give God the glory. And kids, here it is. And he was eaten by worms and died. When I was a kid, I loved that story. Got to confess, I still kind of like it. He was eaten by worms and died. Why? Because of his arrogance. It's the same as the Tower of Babel, isn't it? Could they have built a tower that would reach heaven? No. But their arrogance in thinking they could is what destroyed them. So, 1 Corinthians chapter 8. Knowledge will make you conceited, but love edifies. Lording it over someone, telling them how much you know. I have a real aversion to when I visit a congregation, especially if they know I'm a minister, to speaking up in class. Because it is It bugs the other preacher because he's worried about what you're going to say and if you're going to catch him in a weak area that he doesn't know the answer to. And it bugs others around you. And yes, I have been in those classes where the preacher dominates the comments of the entire class period, and I hate it. So I almost, my sister would go in and said, please don't say anything. I said, don't worry, I won't. Won't raise my hand once. Even when I was tempted, I sat on it. Now, it makes you conceited. But true love says, I care more about your feelings than about you knowing how smart I am. People love to see an arrogant person fail. So don't be the person that everyone's praying fails. Our national press, they love when a politician says one thing and messes up in another area, don't they? They are so quick to jump on that. And then you got social media that's all over it. Servant leaders are willing to be served as well. We learn to serve by watching other servants in action. That's why we ask our young men to get up and do things. If you weren't here Wednesday night, or the 2 Wednesday nights, Hunter and Bryce did just an absolutely phenomenal job. And Bryce, I'm not sure, but it looked like he might have been a little nervous up there. In fact, he came up in the hall and he says, I have stage fright. Well, I told him, this is a place to learn because there's not a person here who cares if you mess up. They love the fact that you tried. And he did a great job, even saying he forgot his notes, and he winged it. And he winged it well. Did great, and so did Hunter. Hunter, he was acting professional like he knows how to do. He's ready to take my job, I think. They did good, and we were proud of them. You learn by watching others and by mentoring them and letting them mess up. And then helping them grow past that. Now Jesus, he cleared it up in John 13. He says, look, if I, your teacher, if I, your Lord, if I, your whatever, am willing to wash your feet, you can't do the same? And I can just see Peter and all of them wanting to fall down quickly and wash somebody's feet. And it's about an attitude. It's about a lifestyle. There was a period in church history where a lot of churches wash feet, one Sunday a month or whatever. That's not what he was saying, was he? He was saying, be washing everyone's feet at all times. That's what a servant leader does. And service, or being served, is also not just a result of humility, but it is also an act of submission that is scriptural in nature. Young men, place yourself under subjection of the elders. And by the way, I believe firmly, young men, that this is not just talking about the men who are in the position of elder. This is the men older than you that have wisdom that you do not have yet. Place yourself in subjection to your elders. And all of you, clothe yourself with humility towards one another. God is opposed to the proud, but God gives grace to the one who's humble. I would rather have God's grace than his opposition, wouldn't you? Clothe yourself in humility. Be ready to listen. And older men, listen to their idea, the younger men's idea, before you instantly tell them the right way to do it. Well, you might know the right way. I'm not discounting that. You might know the right way. But let them, some things they need to mess up on before they're ready to learn. So let them. As I always joke, Carl makes fun of me, Roger made fun of me, Bruce made fun of me. I don't turn off the power when I do electrical work. I know a certain percentage, about 98% of the time, I'm going to get bit. But once it shocks me, the power goes off and I don't have to go downstairs and turn it off. So I'm okay. See, wisdom says, don't bother telling Jeff to turn off the power. He's not going to do it anyway. Servant leaders are willing to be served. There's 2 reasons why servant leaders don't share their leadership. They have too much confidence in themselves and too little confidence in others. I don't share this story often. I probably have shared it with you, though, in the past. I've been here too long. I'm running out of stories. But there was a day, and I was actually the commander of U.S. forces in Afghanistan at night. I took over the night ready room, and so we would field calls and all that. And I made a call during the night, which the next morning, I don't think it was Colin Powell, but it was someone on his level, came in. Why did you make that decision? Well, sir, facts on hand. I made the decision. I made the call. It had to be made then. I'm sorry if you don't agree. I don't agree. So in the future, you will call and wake me up. I said, on every decision that has to be made, you want me to call you? I make dozens every night. You want me to call and wake you up? Yes. Okay, sir, I can do that. Well, later that day, I shot him a text message and said, sir, I have to go to the little boys' room. Do I have permission to do that? And I knew when I sent it, that could go two ways, right? I will tell you I was night commander with full authority again the next night because he got the point. You know, if you trust me, you trust me. If you don't, you don't. Relieve me. You've got to have confidence in your followers. Even when you're pretty sure they're going to mess up on something, let them mess up and let them learn from it. As I always said, unless somebody's going to get killed over it. So, parents, I'm going to turn to you for a minute. Parents of young kids, there are 4 stages of parental leadership that you need to be aware of and you need to think about when you're leading others, okay? First one, when they are ages 0 to 6 years old. All right? This is called the micromanagement stage. We've all worked for micromanagers as adults, and we hated them, didn't we? But children need micromanagers. This is when you establish order and rules and safety, right? You know, Autumn, quit licking the light switch. Bad idea. We teach rules, and we punish rule breaking. The Bible gives us the rules for punishing our children for a reason. And that does include, I'm sorry, modern parents, spanking their little bottoms from time to time. Because it provides them an understanding of rules and punishment. And it sets the rule for acceptable behavior. Now, when they are 6 to 12, you start acting like a manager. You've given them the basic rules. You've given them the guidelines. So at this point, you explain to them. You can't explain anything to a 3-year-old. It's a waste of your breath. But at 6 to 12, start explaining to them why you made the decision. And I would also say this. Start explaining to them why you make family decisions that you make on things. Job decisions. Church decisions. Discuss it with them. Explain the rules. This is why we're going to do this. And this is why you're not allowed to hitchhike when you're walking to school. There's reasons. Now, when they're 12 to 18, you go from manager to supervisor. Give them some autonomy. Give them responsibility with that autonomy. You can do this, but here's the expectation when you do it. If you break the rules on this, we have to step backwards a little bit. So autonomy, freedom, but with that comes responsibility. Now here's the one we as parents hate. When they are over 18, we become consultants because they are adults. They can do as they please, right? You can't do much to change it. Threats of throwing them out, that doesn't work. They'll say thank you and leave. Well, no, they don't all just get out and leave. In this age of millennials, they all say, no, we're going to the basement. And we're going to stay there for the next 30 years, see if you like it. Now, you've got to allow them to lead themselves at this point. Give them room to maneuver. And don't give advice if they don't ask for it. Don't insist that you're going to let them listen to you. Allow the child to learn that they can make contact when they need your advice. Now, I'm a husband, and I got a wife who is a mama, and I'm going to get in trouble for what comes next. She's already shaking her head. But it is a well-known part of nature. Mamas are mama bears. Mama bears are protective. Mama bears love to tell Papa Bear, you need to tell your son this. My son is 30-something years old and a cop. He will ask me if he wants to know this. You need to tell him anyway. See, it's difficult because, as I said, our parents are always our parents. They are. And our babies are always our babies. I got a hurried text the other day from Allison. Said, it says online or on the radio or something, there's somebody saying he's going to kill any cop that comes near and he's been shooting. Is our son there? Well, I'm not going to call and ask him if he's hunkered down and somebody's shooting at him. He'll call me after. Or not, and then I'll go find him. But for now, we've got to give them that room. If you start giving advice to your grown children when they don't ask for it, they're never going to ask for it. And they are never going to listen to you, and they will resent you at some point. And resentment can turn to hatred in a heartbeat. So the lesson to the apostles was this. They followed, or the lesson of the apostles rather, they followed Jesus as he led. They were watching him. They were learning. They did everything after he went to heaven. See, he had trained them. It was a short training period, wasn't it? Man. When they couldn't do it, they chose servant helpers. The deacons, for example. We do not have time to wait on tables. We have another job. I thought about this yesterday because I had reviewed my lesson yesterday morning. I was here really early yesterday because I couldn't sleep good. So I came on in, and I'm going over my sermon for today as well as reading over funeral, the eulogy I'd prepared. And as the others came in, Carl and Missy and them, and started cooking, I love to cook. I love to be a part of the talking, and I really wanted to go down there. But that wasn't my job. I had a job, and I needed to concentrate on my job. And so as guilty as I feel before and after, I was busy. The apostles said the same. We are too busy to wait on tables. It's not what our job is at the moment. So they got deacons. Paul, Timothy, do not forget the gift you were given at the laying on of hands. Go start churches and install elders. Don't forget that's your job. In other words, Timothy, don't stay in that city for 5 years. Get in there, get the church going, and move on. Let them do their thing. Servant leader has to have the confidence to let others lead and to get out of the way. I've served under different kinds of elderships, and one eldership in particular, they said our deacons have full authority to make decisions as long as they run it past us first. It doesn't sound like authority to me. And my response to that eldership when I was a deacon was, we got a room full of grown men that run companies, that run army units. We had 2 that were Secret Service agents on the presidential detail. I think we can make a decision about when to buy toilet paper or not for the building. Give us a budget and get out of the way. That's not your job. And see, I'm a firm proponent of the work of the deacons is not the job of the elders to oversee. They oversee the spiritual life of the church. And they only intervene when the deacons are messing up in the spiritual realm. So, Luke chapter 9, verse 2. And he sent them out to proclaim the kingdom of God and to perform healing. When? After just a few months of them being students of his. He sent them out. And he said, when I sent you out with money, but without money, and I sent you out without bags and sandals, did you lack for anything? No, Lord, nothing. We were okay. Grant that we may sit on your right and left. Well, here's a couple of things they did get right. They did not want to replace Jesus. They did not ask Grant that we can have your chair and you move to the side now. That was smart. They were willing to jointly lead as a team. We'll work together, Lord. We're just right here beside you. We love you, Lord. What did they get wrong? They were selfish. They were selfish. I've got a note on there that's so small, there's nobody in their right mind could read this. Anyway, they were selfish. They did not care what the others thought of this. We see this because it said the other 10 began to feel indignant. They were Well, how dare you ask that? At least wait till we've gone. Why would you do it right in front of us? They were angry about it. They did not care how the others they wanted to lead. And secondly, they wanted positional strength. Now, positional strength is kind of like I said about Julius Caesar. We're going to make you emperor. Great. Now, that means I'm the boss. I've seen that before in our workplaces. Somebody made manager, and all of a sudden they know the answer to everything in the world. Verse 42 and 45 of our reading today, you know that those who are recognized as rulers among the Gentiles domineer over them. That's positional strength. And their people in high position exercise authority over them. But it is not this way among you. And when he says you here, he not only means the apostles, he means you as the workers that took over in this century. It's not that way among you. If you want to be prominent among your people, then be their servant. Be their servant. They misunderstood true leadership. They believed that people would be forced to obey them. Jesus' example was to divest his authority into others through service. So make yourself a slave to everyone around you. They'll lift you up. You don't have to lift yourself up. They'll lift you up. They will recognize it. You don't need a title to gain respect. There will be a lot of great leaders in the church that will never have the title deacon or elder or preacher. But boy, they can sure earn the respect of a congregation, can't they? In fact, they can mess up an eldership because they can be so respected that people go to them instead of the elders. And that's not terribly a bad thing. Scripture advises against brash, arrogant behaviors. Romans 12:3, for through the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you not to think more highly of himself than he ought to think, but to think so as to have sound judgment, as God has allotted to each of you a measure of faith. When you're tempted to think too much of yourself, remember what Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians 8. If anyone thinks he knows anything, he has not yet known as he ought to know. In other words, you think you know it all, then you just proved you don't know anything. If you love God, you're known by God. And when tempted to compete with everyone else, remember, do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility, consider one another as more important than yourselves. Yesterday, I asked Cal to do something, and it was really a meaningless small gesture. One of the pallbearers, as we're starting the funeral, had left his lights flashing on his car, and we knew his battery would die. So he starts to go. We're starting the funeral. I said, no, you sit down. One of our men will run out, take care of that for you. No, I can do it. No, we'll do it. Gave the keys to Hal. He ran out, took care of it, came back. That was showing servant leadership. This man was in mourning for his aunt. We can serve him. We can serve him and help carry that, even that tiny burden, for just a moment. So if you want to lead others, learn to serve them. That's our lesson for today. If you want to lead others, learn to serve them. Today, if you have needs in your life, if you need help, please come. Please come now while together we stand and while we sing.
There is coming a day where no